Going on, guys. Let's get after it and look at some stuff. Okay, so first off, let's just go over the market indexes. I'm gonna go over QQQ and SMH basically. Um, so we've kind of been grinding up, and then today we had a 1.7% down day. Pretty choppy throughout the day here. Had a nice attempt this morning as we kind of curled back up through open, quickly failed. Another one mid afternoon, kind of pulled back in and just dangled here. Looks like we're gapping down a little bit in the after hours. Um, Nothing really, ahead of this to indicate, we're going to get a big gap down. I actually want to go through some stocks, um, what they look like and kind of, again, put yourself in that, place to where, uh, you're looking at them and, even buying them. But, pretty, pretty clean setup here on the cues. Drifting into the 20-day moving average. You got the 50-day flattening and about to curl up down below. Um, you've got the gap up, bull gap here at 707. You've got, 710 as a level down below as well. Um, I mean, I'm okay with if, a couple attempts that, I took. A little bit of a bifurcated market, right? With some, healthcare stuff, some oil stuff, and then basically just everything, AI got smacked. Um, yeah, interesting day. I mean, it basically led by memory. So let's kind of pull up the SMH. It was down, 4%, a little bit off the lows, hit a low of 562. We closed about 570. Um, one day close above the 50-day moving average and quickly smack down. It's not a great look. EWY, kind of same thing. Had an upper wick, got a little bit ahead of itself. About a 20% rally, in a few days off the lows, it's up 32%. And then, nasty 8% down day back below all key moving averages in one day. So, not again, that's a pretty nasty candle in the memory and AI stuff. Here's MU. I closed some as we kind of got back below the 50-day moving average. We talked about this yesterday in this 1030 spot. I'm long from 784, so excuse some of my drawings. Um, and then what else is oh, I want to go for some of these photonic groups or optics or whatever, because like I was kind of wishing that I had bought some of this COHR as we, had this whole day at the 20 May on Friday. Then we had this gap up wick play to remount remount to all the moving averages, broke previous day high, closed decently strong. Um, not great. It wasn't a great close, but I'm like, man, that's a setup that like I would take. And then you get this, down 13%. Looking at light, I was kind of following on this too yesterday. I wasn't gonna buy it yesterday, but and then it's down 10% today. Yeah, I still think these could be in play. Imagine, a big hammer candle right here, some build out, some tightness to hold here, could look solid. AOI as well, had this beautiful flag, and then, there's just gnarly three candle. I mean, it looks like a big giant middle finger these past, 3 days. Here's a knuckle, and here's a middle finger. Not great, not super great. So if you were in these, I can see some frustration, um, in the market. Thankfully, nothing was too bad. I made that mistake, with A Lab. I was talking that if you go up and reject here and we oops reversal, I was going to sell it at my average at 320. I didn't. Got caught in this, caught in this gap down, but was in this gap down, sold it just below my stop, which I was again already budgeted for. So is what that is. I stopped out of ARM on Monday. Was long from about 273. As we came red to green, I sold it, or sorry, green to red. I sold it just above my entry price. Um, Tried what did I trade today? I tried Marvell at open. Looking at that, probably could have gone without that. And given the fact that this, pushed up and then gap down so significantly. I probably didn't need to be looking for the oops and the hold here of this spot around that 220 mark. I'm okay with it, but looking back, I should have given it um, I should have waited for it to really kind of, prove itself. So here's a 15-minute candle. I mean, geez, here's a 10-minute candle. As this was kind of pushing, I bought it 223, and then, quickly sold as we broke, 220 shortly after that and broke low a day. Um, and then I tried QQQ here as again, I've got a 10-minute chart up just because it kind of shows it, but I was looking at a 30-minute, trying some 30-minute pivot action. Undercut this spot. I had a really tight entry on TQQQ. I think my first size was at like 72.70 or something. I don't know. I sold it for like 40-cent loss. And then tried it again at I don't have my broker up, but it's 72.60, I believe. Um and so we'll see what happens with that. I mean, looking at this, guys, I know but just pulling back into the 20 May like this, I gotta give it a try. Same thing for tomorrow. If we have some weakness, I'll be looking for a reclaim of previous day low, an IMS reversal, a 30-minute pivot on this to see what we can get going. I mean, you can get on I mean on something like this, you can really risk 40 cents, and that's actually like a reasonable risk spot, and that's 0.6%. You know what I mean? So you're able to get some size in it. Hopefully you get a cushion into it. Um, but overall, this is cool, right? This is great. We talked about this last night actually before we were even gabbing down, which was now's a great time um to look for some of those pullbacks in the leaders and how they act and where the market kind of tells us. RBRK obviously is one of those that everyone should be and is going to be watching as it kind of consolidates around this $100 spot. Palantir, as it flags out here, is going to be extremely interesting in this about 167 to 161 area. NBIS. Oh, I tried this as well. At the end of the day, I got 247 average. Ended up selling it. Small loss in the after hours. And that's how it actually pushing. I want to pull it up here. Yeah, pushing a little bit. 249, whatever. Um, anyways, dude, look, just close your eyes for a second and think about an earnings stock, like just that. Like that's completely normal for an earnings to do this. I know it's got some broad range, but like let's be honest, it is doing nothing wrong. I hate what the group's doing, WGMI and the NeoCloud group. Whether it's Cypher looks like shit, Riot looks like shit, Cores, CoreWeave, looks okay. Nasty today, of course. But anyways, so, man, I wanted this, around the 230s, and I've seen this pullback. This is going to be on my radar still, um, for the foreseeable future. I don't know how it couldn't be. Same thing with Palantir, same thing with RBRK, same thing with CrowdStrike here. Same thing with Dell. I still have this. I sold my HPE today, at 55.30 or something. The rest of it I trimmed up over $60. And didn't really care to scissors pull back up. Realistically, I could buy this back tomorrow on a hold of the 20 May or in the coming days, something like this. I'd be willing to buy it back more. Like there's still merchandise out there. Dell, same thing. Like, is this doing anything wrong? I don't see any reason to why we need to necessarily shit our pants or say, there's nothing to do. There's a lot of emotions still flying around, a lot of opinions, and I've got opinions too. And, I really just want people to try to look at, some of these charts in isolation and think about them, really calmly. What would be normal and natural? What do you want to see? Because, as I construct my watch list tonight, I'm pretty excited. I mean, Amazon looks really good. That's why, one of the reasons why I was looking at TQQQ, APPS looks really good. One second here. APPS here into that gap right there. Almost thought about giving it an attempt, but decided to pass. Shopify post earnings looks like it's gonna try to make an attempt to give us a buy signal. Twilio, same thing. Snowflake, same thing. MDB needs some consolidation still. Let me just go through my list here. UMAC. Still looks good. Probably need some time to flag out a little bit. Butterfly, BFLY, holding above that HVC still. Um, and then these Light and AMD and Marvell and COHR. COHR is probably is off the list. AOI still have it on there, but I'm not a big fan of it. Light's probably the one in this group. Then you got Unity. Like this looks like a buy on a pullback. Sentinel One. This looks like a buy on a pullback. Airbnb, FIVN, RNG. Um, Intel I still have on the list as well. ANET right into the 20 May holding 190. TER kind of a nasty day as well. But I think this could I thought about this today. I held back just because it's kind of wonky. I'm like, man, this is up 6%, looked fantastic, and then down like 10% today. I was like, I don't think I can step in front of that. Let's build out a little bit. But imagine a couple days on this, you could get something to work. I'm not like saying like you could, like I'm imagining things. I'm just kind of like preparing for what I want to see, what would be actionable and achievable. And if the market starts to give that, then we can take action and be ready for that. And that's what I care about. If things end up pulling back further and we get another nasty bar in a couple days, then so be it. Then stocks are just gonna end up stopping me out. And I'll be kind of waiting for the next market signal. But I really think that um need to look for this market to hold here. And if it doesn't, then we as we break below the 20 man, the 50-day moving average down below, um, then we lighten up. And then if we reclaim that, then we get back involved. Like pretty simple as that. Um, I've got enough to populate my watch list. I've got enough to be excited about. And I want to be ready for if the market gives a buy day. Simple as that. I'll see you guys in the morning.